Hey guys, tonight we begin with one of history's most brutal spectacles, the Roman Colosseum Games. You've probably seen the Hollywood version. Noble gladiators fighting valiantly for freedom, crowds cheering for heroic warriors, and maybe Russell Crowe delivering passionate speeches about honor. But the reality was far more complex, desperate, and frankly disturbing than any movie could capture. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background, huh? And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Tonight, we're diving deep into the underground world of Roman prisoners. Not the celebrated gladiators you know from movies, but the forgotten masses of condemned criminals, war captives, and political prisoners who faced almost certain death in the arena. We'll explore how some of these desperate souls managed to survive when survival seemed impossible, the brutal systems they navigated, and the psychological warfare they employed just to see another sunrise. The truth is far stranger and more harrowing than fiction. These weren't heroes. They were humans pushed to the absolute limits of endurance, forced to develop strategies that would make modern survival experts seem like amateurs. Some of their techniques were brilliant, others were horrifying, but all were born from the most basic human instinct, the will to live. The underground world, you're dragged through the streets of Rome, chains cutting into your wrists, the jeers of citizens echoing off stone walls. But the real horror begins when you're shoved down a narrow stone staircase into the Hypogeum, the underground labyrinth beneath the Colosseum. The stench hits you first, a mixture of human sweat, blood, animal waste, and rotting flesh that seems to coat the inside of your nostrils. The Hypogeum was an engineering marvel and a nightmare made real. Stretching 15 feet below the arena floor, this complex network of tunnels, cells, and mechanical systems housed the infrastructure of death. You're pushed into a cell barely 6 feet by 4 feet, carved directly from the tufa stone. The walls weep with moisture, and you can hear rats scurrying in the darkness. This is where you'll spend what might be your final days. Your cellmates are a mixture of the condemned, a Gallic warrior captured in the recent campaigns, his tribal tattoos still visible beneath layers of grime, a Jewish rebel from the failed uprising, muttering prayers in a language you don't understand, a common thief from the Subura district who stole one loaf of bread too many. Each carries the same hollow look in their eyes, the recognition that they've crossed a line from which there's no return. The cell blocks stretch endlessly through the tunnels. Roman engineers built this place to house thousands of prisoners, with different sections for different types of condemned souls. Political prisoners were kept separate from common criminals, war captives isolated from gladiators in training. The Romans understood that mixing these populations could lead to coordinated uprisings, and they took no chances. Guards patrol the corridors at irregular intervals, their sandaled feet echoing against stone. They carry short gladi and wear a leather armor, but more importantly, they carry keys. Every prisoner quickly learns to recognize the sound of their approach, the jingle of iron keys, the scrape of metal against stone, the low conversations in Latin that might determine who lives and who dies today. The lighting comes from oil lamps placed at strategic intervals, casting dancing shadows that play tricks on your mind. After days in this environment, you begin to see things that aren't there. Figures moving in the darkness, faces in the stone walls, hope where none exists. The psychological warfare begins long before you ever set foot in the arena. Water comes from a communal trough filled twice daily by slaves who avoid eye contact. The liquid tastes of minerals and desperation. Food arrives as a watery gruel made from barley, sometimes supplemented with scraps of meat, so questionable you wonder if it came from previous arena victims. But you eat it anyway, because survival demands fuel, and pride is a luxury you can no longer afford. Sleep becomes your enemy and your salvation. In drinks, you're free. running through familiar fields, embracing loved ones, living the life that's been stolen from you. But consciousness brings the harsh reality crashing back. The stone walls, the stench, the certainty of approaching death. Some prisoners prefer to stay awake, finding nightmares preferable to the crushing disappointment of waking up. The smart ones begin forming alliances immediately. Information is currency here, and survival often depends on knowing which guard can be bribed, which prisoner has connections, or which day's games might offer the best chance of mercy. These relationships form quickly and dissolve just as fast when self-preservation demands betrayal. You learn to read the rhythm of the place. Morning brings the sound of elevators being tested, the complex pulley systems that lift animals and prisoners into the arena. Afternoon means the arrival of new prisoners, their fear and confusion palpable as they're processed into the system. Evening brings relative quiet, broken only by prayers, weeping, or the occasional scream from someone who's finally broken under the pressure. The machinery of survival, you quickly realize that survival in the hypogeum requires understanding the machinery of death that surrounds you. Every morning, you hear the grinding of gears and the creaking of pulleys as the Roman engineers test their elaborate elevator systems. These aren't simple lifts. They're complex theatrical devices designed to create dramatic entrances for both animals and humans in the arena above. The Romans called these elevators pegmata, and they were marvels of engineering precision. Each one could lift up to 600 pounds, operated by teams of slaves working capstans below. As a prisoner, you learn to listen to these tests because they tell you what kind of show is being planned. Heavy grinding sounds mean large animals, lions, bears, or elephants. Lighter, more frequent testing suggests human combats or executions. Your first lesson in survival comes from an unexpected source. A grizzled former gladiator named Marcus, serving as a trainer for the condemned. He's missing 3 fingers on his left hand and has scars crisscrossing his torso like a map of pain. "Listen, boy," he growls in accented Latin. "The arena isn't about fighting. It's about performance. Give them a show, and you might live to see tomorrow." Marcus explains the brutal economics of the games. Each prisoner represents an investment. Capture costs, transport, housing, feeding. The editors who organized the games wanted to maximize entertainment value, which sometimes meant keeping skilled performers alive. Death was profitable, but spectacle was more profitable. Die beautifully, Marcus advises, and they might let you live to die beautifully again. You learn about the different types of executions and how each offers varying chances of survival. The Noxi, criminals condemned to death, faced the worst odds. They were thrown to wild animals with no weapons, no armor, no chance. But even here, knowledge could save your life. Understanding animal behavior, knowing which beasts were well-fed and less aggressive, recognizing the signs of an animal that might be drugged or injured. These details could mean the difference between a quick death and a miraculous escape. The bestiari, beast fighters, had better odds but faced different challenges. These prisoners were given basic weapons and minimal training to fight wild animals. Survival meant learning to read animal behavior instantly. A lion's posture before it charges. The sound a bear makes when it's genuinely angry versus when it's performing. The way an elephant's ears move when it's about to trumpet and charge. Your life depended on becoming an expert in seconds. Some prisoners discovered they had unexpected talents under pressure. You watch as a young Dacian prisoner, terrified of fighting, reveals an incredible ability to dodge and weave. His cowardice, which initially made him a target for mockery, becomes his greatest asset. He doesn't fight the animals, he survives them, dancing away from claws and teeth until the crowd grows bored and moves on to the next spectacle. The underground network becomes your university in survival. Experienced prisoners share techniques passed down through generations of the condemned. How to fashion crude weapons from bone fragments. How to read the mood of the crowd by the sound filtering down through the arena floor. How to position yourself during animal attacks to maximize your chances of avoiding fatal wounds. You learn about the different types of sand used in the arena and what they tell you about the day's events. Fine white sand from Egypt was reserved for important games and absorbed blood better, meaning more death was expected. Coarse local sand suggested smaller events where prisoners might have better chances of survival. The color of the sand after it was raked also told stories. Dark stains that wouldn't wash out marked spots where particularly brutal deaths had occurred. The elevator systems themselves become tools of survival for the clever. Understanding their timing meant knowing when distractions would occur, when guards would be focused on operations rather than prisoners, when opportunities for escape or better positioning might arise. Some prisoners even learned to sabotage equipment subtly, causing delays that might postpone their own deaths or create chaos that could be exploited. Communication between cells happened through an elaborate system of knocks, scratches, and whispered messages passed during guard changes. Information traveled through the prison network faster than officials realized. Which prisoners had been selected for tomorrow's games? Which animals were being particularly aggressive in training? Which officials might be susceptible to bribes or appeals for mercy? Reading the crowd above, you discover that survival often depends not on what happens in the arena, but on understanding the 50,000 Roman citizens sitting in the stands above your head. Their collective mood filters down through the stone floor as a constant rumble, sometimes excited, sometimes bored, sometimes bloodthirsty beyond belief. Learning to read this crowd becomes as crucial as learning to fight. The acoustics of the Colosseum were deliberately designed to amplify crowd reactions. As you lie on your stone floor, you can distinguish between different types of cheering. The sharp staccato roar means someone has just delivered a spectacular killing blow. The sustained rhythmic chanting indicates the crowd wants mercy for a fallen fighter. The disappointed groan tells you someone has died too quickly, without providing enough entertainment. An old British prisoner, captured during Hadrian's northern campaigns, teaches you the crucial difference between thumbs up and thumbs down, and it's not what you think. Paulus verso, he explains, showing the gesture with his scarred thumb. Turn thumb means death, but it's not about the direction. It's about hiding the thumb, mercy, or showing it, kill. The crowd's thumb position, visible from certain angles in the underground viewing areas, could literally determine your fate. You learn that different sections of the crowd have different appetites for violence. The plebs in the upper tiers, getting free entertainment thanks to imperial largesse, tend to be the most bloodthirsty. They want spectacular deaths to justify their day off work. The wealthy patricians in the lower tiers are more sophisticated in their tastes. They appreciate skill, technique, and dramatic tension over pure brutality. The emperor's presence changes everything. When Caesar attends the games, survival rates actually increase because imperial attendance means the event is being carefully orchestrated for maximum political impact. Every death, every mercy, every dramatic moment is calculated for effect. Spontaneous bloodbaths don't serve political purposes, so prisoners often receive better treatment when the emperor is watching. You discover the importance of timing within individual games. Early morning executions, when the crowd is fresh and eager, tend to be the most brutal. The Noxi, condemned criminals, are usually dispatched quickly to warm up the audience. Midday brings animal hunts and beast fights, when the sun is high and the crowd is getting restless. But the real gladiator matches happen in the afternoon, when shadows are long and every movement is dramatized by the changing light. Religious festivals and political celebrations affect crowd mood dramatically. During the Ludi Romani, celebrating Jupiter, the crowd expects grandeur and mercy, good days to be condemned. During funeral games for deceased emperors, death is almost guaranteed as the deceased ruler demands tribute in blood. You learn to pray for minor religious observances and dread the major imperial celebrations. The seasonal weather affects both crowd patience and prisoner survival. Summer heat makes everyone irritable. Crowds want quick, brutal deaths so they can escape the sun. Winter Games, when they occurred, featured audiences more interested in staying warm than watching prolonged suffering. Spring and autumn offered the best chances of survival, when comfortable crowds were willing to watch extended displays of skill and courage. Women in the crowd react differently than men, and experienced prisoners learn to play to these differences. A young mother might show mercy to a prisoner who reminds her of her own son. Wealthy matrons often appreciate displays of dignity and honor over raw aggression. Some female spectators even develop favorites among the regular gladiators and prisoners, following their careers and advocating for their survival. You start recognizing the different crowd sounds that indicate opportunity. When attention is divided, perhaps by a disturbance in the stands or an exciting race in the nearby Circus Maximus, guards become less attentive and prisoners might have chances to communicate, share resources, or position themselves better for upcoming events. The mob's attention span becomes predictable. Romans loved spectacle, but they also loved variety. A prisoner who could adapt his fighting style, who could provide something unexpected even in defeat, had better chances of surviving to fight again. Boring deaths were forgotten immediately. Memorable performances, even in defeat, might earn enough crowd sympathy to guarantee survival. During major festivals, the crowd's expectations were managed by program announcements. Knowing what type of entertainment was promised helped prisoners understand their roles. If exotic animal hunts were featured, beast fighters knew they needed to provide drama. If gladiator matches were the main event, condemned prisoners understood they were merely warm-up acts and should die quickly and spectacularly. The psychology of the doomed you realized that physical survival in the Colosseum depends entirely on mental survival in the hypogeum. The psychological warfare begins the moment you're shoved into your cell, and it never stops. The Romans understood that broken minds made for better spectacles. Desperate people fight more frantically, die more dramatically, and provide better entertainment for the crowds above. Sleep deprivation becomes a weapon against you. Guards deliberately disrupt rest periods with random cell inspections, sudden prisoner movements, or late-night questioning sessions. They know that exhausted minds make poor decisions, and poor decisions in the arena mean spectacular deaths. You learn to sleep in short intervals, always listening, never fully surrendering to unconsciousness. The constant uncertainty eats at your sanity more than any physical torture. You never know when your name will be called, what type of death awaits you, or whether today's games will include your final performance. Some prisoners break under this pressure within days, becoming catatonic or hysterically violent. Others develop an almost supernatural calm, accepting their fate so completely that they become dangerous to the prison's carefully maintained atmosphere of terror. You watch as different prisoners develop different coping mechanisms. The religious ones pray constantly, Christians muttering about martyrdom, followers of Mithras seeking strength through suffering, pagans making offerings to household gods who seem impossibly distant in this underground hell. The practical ones focus obsessively on physical preparation, exercising in their cells, practicing combat movements, maintaining their bodies as their only remaining possessions. A Gallic chieftain named Brenius teaches you about battle rage, the ability to enter a mental state where pain becomes irrelevant and death loses its terror. Your ancestors knew this. He tells you in broken Latin, the fury that makes men into gods. In the arena, fear kills faster than any sword. Rage keeps you alive. He shows you breathing techniques, meditation practices, ways to summon controlled fury when facing impossible odds. The most dangerous prisoners are those who have nothing left to lose. You identify them quickly. They're the ones who've given up hope entirely, but haven't surrendered to despair. Instead, they've channeled their hopelessness into a kind of reckless courage. They volunteer for the most dangerous assignments, take unnecessary risks, and paradoxically often survive longer than more cautious prisoners because their unpredictability makes them valuable entertainment. Roman guards employ deliberate psychological manipulation to maintain control. They spread false rumors about pardons and releases, knowing that hope makes prisoners more compliant. They show favoritism to certain prisoners, creating jealousy and competition among the condemned. They provide occasional small luxuries, better food, warmer clothing, visits from prostitutes, then withdraw them arbitrarily to reinforce their absolute power. You learn to recognize the signs of impending mental breakdown in your fellow prisoners. The man who stops eating isn't being noble, he's giving up. The one who talks constantly about his family isn't maintaining hope. He's losing his grip on present reality. The prisoner who becomes obsessively clean, washing himself repeatedly with the limited water available, is trying to maintain dignity in an undignified situation. But the obsession usually precedes complete psychological collapse. Dreams become your worst enemy. Every night, you escape to freedom, only to wake up to stone walls and iron bars. Some prisoners learn to control their dreams, keeping them deliberately mundane to avoid the crushing disappointment of waking up. Others embrace the escapism so completely that they begin preferring sleep to consciousness, becoming lethargic and vulnerable. The smartest prisoners develop what modern psychologists would recognize as dissociation techniques. They learn to separate their minds from their bodies during torture, interrogation, or combat. A young Jewish rebel shows you how to focus on a single point of light, even when that light exists only in your imagination, using it as an anchor to keep your consciousness intact when your body is being destroyed. Guilt becomes a survival tool for some prisoners. Those condemned for genuine crimes often fight harder because they believe their suffering has meaning. They're paying for their sins through combat rather than simple execution. Innocent prisoners, paradoxically, sometimes struggle more because they can't reconcile their suffering with any concept of justice or meaning. You discover that maintaining some connection to your previous identity is crucial for mental survival. Prisoners who completely surrender their past selves to their current circumstances tend to become hollow shells, effective in the arena, but already dead in every meaningful sense. Those who hold on to some core aspect of who they were, their skills, their beliefs, their relationships, maintain the mental flexibility necessary for survival. The hierarchy of the condemned. You quickly learn that even among the doomed, strict hierarchies determine who lives, who dies, and who gets the chance to die with dignity. The hypogeum operates like a twisted society where social status is measured by the manner of your condemnation and your chances of survival. Understanding these distinctions becomes crucial for navigating the complex relationships that might keep you alive another day. At the bottom of this hierarchy are the Naxi, common criminals condemned to death without the right to fight. Murderers, arsonists, traitors, and those who've committed crimes against the state find themselves stripped naked and thrown to wild animals with no weapons, no chance, and no hope. These prisoners are treated as disposable entertainment, barely human in the eyes of their captors. Yet even among the Naxi, subtle distinctions exist. Political prisoners command more respect than common thieves, and those condemned for crimes of passion rank higher than those guilty of premeditated acts. Above the Naxi are the ordinary bestiarii, prisoners given basic weapons to fight wild animals. These men and women at least have the theoretical possibility of survival, though the odds remain slim. A bestiarius who manages to kill a lion might earn crowd approval and live to face another beast. They receive minimal training from retired gladiators, basic weapons maintenance, and slightly better food than the Naxi. More importantly, they're allowed to form small groups for mutual support and tactical planning. War captives occupy a special position in this grim hierarchy. Romans respected martial prowess, even in their enemies, and prisoners taken in honorable combat were often treated with a degree of dignity. A Germanic warrior captured during the Rhine campaigns, a Celtic chieftain from Britannia, or a Parthian cavalryman taken in eastern battles might find themselves training as gladiators rather than being immediately executed. Their military experience makes them valuable, and their exotic appearance provides entertainment value beyond simple death. The most privileged prisoners are those with unusual skills or backgrounds that make them particularly entertaining. A former physician forced to fight might be matched against wild animals to create ironic contrast. A priest of an exotic religion could be forced into gladiatorial combat with religious overtones. Even criminals can achieve higher status if their crimes were spectacular enough to capture public imagination. A notorious bandit leader or a charismatic cult figure might become a featured attraction rather than anonymous fodder. Professional gladiators, technically slaves rather than prisoners, occupy the highest tier of this underground society. Though not free, they receive training, medical care, decent food, and sometimes even prize money for victories. Successful gladiators can earn enough to purchase their freedom, though few survive long enough to accumulate the necessary funds. More importantly for prisoners, gladiators sometimes serve as trainers and mentors, sharing techniques that might mean the difference between quick death and spectacular survival. Women prisoners face unique challenges within this hierarchy. Roman law technically prohibited women from participating in gladiatorial combat, but exceptions were made for foreign captives, slaves, and those condemned for particularly heinous crimes. Female prisoners often receive special training in exotic fighting styles. Amazon warriors, Scythian archers, or simply as novelty acts fighting dwarves or against wild animals. Their rarity made them valuable, but also subjected them to additional sexual exploitation. You discover that reputation travels fast in the underground network. A prisoner who distinguishes himself in training, who shows unusual courage or skill, quickly gains status among his fellows. This social elevation brings practical benefits. Better sleeping positions in shared cells, first access to food and water, protection from weaker prisoners who might try to curry favor with guards by informing on planned escapes or resistance. Age affects your position in the hierarchy in complex ways. Very young prisoners, teenagers captured in military actions, or children condemned for family crimes often receive special treatment from both guards and fellow prisoners. Their youth evokes some protection instinct, even in this brutal environment. Elderly prisoners, unless they possess special skills or knowledge, typically find themselves at the bottom of the social order, considered burdens who consume resources without providing entertainment value. Regional prejudices from the outside world continue operating in the hypogeum. Greek prisoners, despite their subject status, often command respect for their education and cultural achievements. Egyptian captives might be valued for their knowledge of exotic fighting techniques or animal handling. Germanic and Celtic warriors earn status through their reputation for ferocity. Meanwhile, prisoners from remote provinces or unconquered territories become curiosities, their exotic appearance and customs making them valuable for specialized entertainment. Religious affiliation creates its own social dynamics. Christians, despite being reviled by Roman society, often form tight support networks in prison, sharing resources and providing emotional support for each other. Followers of military cults like Mithras bring disciplined approaches to survival that other prisoners admire and sometimes adopt. Jewish prisoners, particularly those from the recent rebellions, carry the respect accorded to worthy enemies, while also bearing the stigma of resistance to Roman rule. The hierarchy shifts constantly based on performance and survival. A low-status prisoner who distinguishes himself in the arena can rapidly rise in estimation, gaining access to better resources and support networks. Conversely, a highly ranked prisoner who shows cowardice or fails spectacularly might find himself ostracized by his former allies. In this world, where death is the expected outcome, courage and skill become the only reliable measures of worth. The underground economy, you discover that even in the depths of the Colosseum's hypogeum, where death seems the only currency, a complex underground economy operates with its own rules, exchange systems, and power brokers. Survival often depends less on fighting ability than on understanding how to navigate this shadow marketplace, where desperation breeds innovation and hope can literally be bought and sold. Information represents the most valuable commodity in this economy. Knowing which animals are being prepared for tomorrow's games, which guards can be bribed, or which officials have family members who might intervene on a prisoner's behalf, can mean the difference between life and death. A prisoner who learns that a particular lion has been starved for 3 days will share this information in exchange for a promise of protection, a share of someone else's food ration, or simply the social capital that comes with being useful. Food becomes the most tangible form of currency. The standard prisoner ration, watery barley gruel supplemented with occasional scraps of questionable meat, barely sustains life, let alone provides the energy needed for arena combat. Prisoners with connections to kitchen slaves, those who've managed to bribe guards, or individuals with valuable skills to trade, find themselves controlling small but significant food surpluses that can be exchanged for other necessities. You watch as a former merchant from Alexandria, condemned for fraud, recreates his trading skills in miniature within the prison system. He identifies prisoners with surplus resources, a Celtic warrior who can't stomach Roman food, a Jewish rebel who won't eat pork, a Germanic captive who's too proud to accept what he sees as charity, and matches them with prisoners desperate for any additional nutrition. His commission is a small portion of each transaction and information about the trading networks he creates. Favors and services form another crucial part of the underground economy. A prisoner with medical knowledge might treat wounds or illnesses in exchange for protection during vulnerable moments. Someone with literacy skills could write letters for illiterate prisoners, though the chances of these messages reaching their destinations remain slim. A former soldier might provide combat training in exchange for sharing sleeping space in a warmer part of the cells. Personal possessions, though severely limited, become incredibly valuable. A piece of decent cloth that could serve as bandaging, a small knife somehow overlooked during processing, or even a good luck charm that might provide psychological comfort. These items circulate through the prison population like precious artifacts. The exchange rates fluctuate based on immediate needs and perceived chances of survival. Religious and magical services create their own market niche. Prisoners who can perform blessings, cast protective spells, or provide spiritual comfort find themselves with steady income streams. A Christian prisoner might offer prayers for the souls of dying inmates in exchange for their remaining possessions. A pagan priest could perform rituals designed to curry favor with the gods of the arena. These services might seem worthless to outsiders, but for men and women facing almost certain death, any possibility of divine intervention becomes infinitely valuable. Sexual services, though officially forbidden, operate as another underground currency. Both male and female prisoners, as well as some guards and officials, participate in networks of sexual exchange. These relationships might provide protection, better treatment, access to information, or simply human comfort in an inhumane situation. The power dynamics are complex and often exploitive, but for some prisoners, selling sexual favors represents their only path to improved conditions or extended survival. You learn about the role of external connections in the prison economy. Prisoners with wealthy families or friends on the outside sometimes receive packages of food, clothing, or small luxury items. These external resources create enormous disparities within the prison population, and clever prisoners find ways to tap into these wealth streams. A well-connected prisoner might need protection from other inmates. A resourceful prisoner without connections might provide that protection in exchange for sharing the benefits. Gambling becomes both entertainment and economic activity. Prisoners bet on everything. Which of them will be selected for tomorrow's games? How long specific animals will remain aggressive? Which guards will be on duty during particular shifts? Even the weather conditions that might affect arena events. These bets are settled in whatever currency is available. food, favors, information, or promises of future support. The guards themselves become part of the economic ecosystem, though their participation is officially forbidden and personally dangerous. A guard who accepts bribes to deliver messages, provide extra food, or simply look away during certain activities risks severe punishment if discovered. But the potential profits from exploiting desperate prisoners often outweigh the risks, especially for poorly paid auxiliary soldiers assigned to prison duty. You discover that some prisoners actually begin accumulating wealth within the system. A successful gladiator might receive prize money that can be used to purchase better equipment, medical care, or improve living conditions. Long-term survivors often develop small hoards of valuable items that they use to maintain their position in the prison hierarchy. These prison entrepreneurs understand that their success depends on others' continued survival, so they often invest in keeping useful prisoners alive rather than simply exploiting them. Training for the impossible. You quickly realize that surviving the arena requires more than luck. It demands skills that no human should ever need to develop. The training you receive as a condemned prisoner bears no resemblance to the intensive gladiatorial schools that produced professional fighters. Instead, it's a desperate crash course in techniques designed not to make you a warrior, but to make your death entertaining enough that you might occasionally be allowed to live. Your first instructor is a one-eyed former legionnaire named Gaius, discharged after losing his sword arm to a Germanic axe. He's been assigned to train condemned prisoners because his own fighting days are over, but his knowledge of combat remains sharp. Forget everything you think you know about fighting, he growls during your first session. In the arena, technique means nothing. Spectacle means everything. Die badly, and you die forgotten. Die well, and you might die tomorrow instead of today. The training area in the Hypogeum is a cramped space with sand-covered floors and walls marked by countless weapon strikes. Here, you learn the basic movements that might keep you alive a few extra minutes. But these aren't the refined techniques taught to gladiators. They're crude, desperate measures designed for prisoners who will likely face their first and last combat simultaneously. For those condemned to fight beasts, the training focuses on understanding animal behavior under unnatural circumstances. A scarred bestiarius named Titus, who somehow survived 3 encounters with lions, teaches you to read the signs of a drugged animal versus a naturally aggressive one. Drugged beasts move slower but unpredictably, he explains, showing you the slightly glazed look in a sedated lion's eyes. Natural aggression follows patterns. Learn the patterns and you might find the openings. You learn that different animals require completely different survival strategies. Lions typically attack with a rushing leap, followed by attempts to knock prey down and deliver killing bites to the throat. Your best defense is lateral movement and using any available obstacles to break their charge. Bears, more intelligent and versatile, require reading their body language. Ears forward means investigation. Ears back means attack. Leopards are the most dangerous because they're fast enough to change direction mid-leap and intelligent enough to set traps. The weapons training for condemned prisoners is deliberately minimal. You're given basic instruction with whatever weapons you'll actually face in the arena, typically crude spears, small shields, or short swords in poor condition. The Romans don't want prisoners becoming too skilled. Competent fighters might actually win their battles and deny the crowd the deaths they've paid to see. Your job is to provide a convincing struggle before dying in an entertaining manner. Physical conditioning becomes more important than weapon technique. A former Greek athlete, condemned for participating in anti-Roman activities, teaches breathing exercises that can help you function despite terror and pain. Your body will try to shut down when death approaches, he explains. These techniques keep your muscles working when your mind wants to surrender. The exercises are simple but effective. Controlled breathing patterns that maintain oxygen flow during extreme stress. You learn about the psychology of pain management. An old gladiator trainer, retired and now working with condemned prisoners, shares techniques for compartmentalizing injury during combat. Pain is information, he says. In the arena, too much information will kill you. Learn to postpone pain until after the fight is over. He teaches you to identify which wounds are immediately fatal versus those that can be ignored temporarily. The most valuable training comes from understanding the arena environment itself. You learn to read the sand for hidden obstacles, dropped weapons, or weak spots in the arena floor that might provide tactical advantages. You study the lighting patterns throughout the day, understanding how shadows might conceal movement or blind opponents. You memorize the locations of every barrier, pillar, and elevation that might provide momentary protection. Mental preparation proves as important as physical training. You learn meditation techniques to control fear, visualization exercises to prepare for different combat scenarios, and psychological strategies for maintaining focus when surrounded by screaming crowds and mortal danger. A Celtic druid, condemned for resisting Roman religious policies, teaches you to find calm centers within chaos. Skills that prove invaluable when facing death in front of 50,000 spectators. Improvised weapon techniques become crucial survival skills. You learn to fashion crude spears from broken wood and metal fragments, to create makeshift shields from available materials, and to use pieces of the arena environment as weapons when your original equipment fails. These skills aren't taught by trainers. They're shared secretly among prisoners who understand that official weapons might break, be taken away, or prove inadequate for unexpected situations. Group combat strategies receive special attention for prisoners who might face multiple opponents or coordinated animal attacks. You learn basic formation techniques, simple communication signals that work even when shouting over crowd noise, and methods for coordinating attacks when numerical superiority is your only advantage. These skills prove especially valuable during the elaborate staged battles that sometimes provided opportunities for multiple prisoners to survive if they work together effectively. The training also includes practical information about arena logistics. You learn the timing of different events, the signals that indicate when new opponents or animals will be introduced, and the crowd responses that might influence official decisions about mercy or continued combat. Understanding these operational details provides strategic advantages that purely physical training cannot match. The politics of death. You discover that even in the arena, where life and death seem to depend on pure chance and physical prowess, survival is ultimately determined by political calculations that have nothing to do with combat skills. The games are political theater, and every death or mercy is a carefully calculated move in broader power struggles that extend far beyond the Colosseum's walls. The editor, the official responsible for organizing and funding the games, makes decisions based on political considerations. You're only beginning to understand. If he's a senator seeking popular support for a future election, he might show unusual mercy to demonstrate his benevolence. If he's trying to curry favor with the emperor, he might orchestrate particularly spectacular deaths to prove his loyalty. If he's facing financial difficulties, he might extend fights longer than necessary to maximize entertainment value from his investment. Emperor attendance changes everything about the political calculations surrounding your potential survival. When Caesar is present, every decision becomes a reflection of imperial policy. Mercy shown to barbarian prisoners might signal peaceful intentions toward their tribes. Harsh treatment of political prisoners could reinforce messages about the consequences of rebellion. Religious prisoners might be spared or executed based on current imperial attitudes toward different cults and beliefs. You learn about the complex relationship between the games and Roman military policy from a former centurion, condemned for cowardice during a Germanic campaign. Every prisoner in this arena represents a political message. He explains during a rare moment of privacy. Your death or survival sends signals to enemies, allies, and Roman citizens about imperial strength, mercy, and justice. You're not just entertainment. You're propaganda. The crowd's political composition affects survival chances in ways you never anticipated. Games funded by conservative senators tend to favor traditional Roman values: mercy for honorable enemies, harsh treatment for criminals, respect for military courage. Events sponsored by populist politicians might emphasize dramatic reversals and surprising mercies that please the common people. Understanding who's paying for your potential death helps predict what kind of performance might save your life. Regional politics play crucial roles in determining prisoner treatment. During periods of tension with Germanic tribes, Germanic prisoners face harsher treatment to satisfy popular bloodlust. When diplomatic relations with Parthia are delicate, Parthian captives might receive better treatment to avoid inflaming tensions. Jewish prisoners' fates often depend on current attitudes toward ongoing rebellions in Palestine. Their treatment serves as a message to their communities about the costs of resistance. Religious politics add another layer of complexity to survival calculations. Christian prisoners face particular challenges because their faith is simultaneously despised by the masses and sometimes protected by officials who view persecution as politically dangerous. A Christian's chances of survival might depend on whether current imperial policy favors tolerance or suppression, whether local officials see martyrdom as creating dangerous examples, or whether specific Christian communities have political connections that might intervene. You observe how gladiatorial schools and trainers manipulate political considerations to protect valuable prisoners. A trainer might emphasize a prisoner's exotic background to make him more politically valuable alive than dead. Schools with political connections sometimes arrange for their best fighters to face particularly favorable matchups or to receive crowd-pleasing scenarios that maximize chances of survival. The timing of games within the Roman political calendar affects every aspect of prisoner treatment. Games held during election seasons feature more populous spectacles designed to win votes. Religious festivals demand specific types of sacrificial deaths that political prisoners might be selected to fulfill. Military celebrations require enemy captives to play specific roles in recreating famous battles, providing opportunities for survival if the historical scenario calls for prisoners to be spared. Local political rivalries among Roman officials create opportunities for clever prisoners to exploit. A prisoner who can provide information damaging to a rival official might find himself with powerful protection. Those who understand the personal animosities among their captors sometimes position themselves as assets rather than mere entertainment. Though this strategy requires incredible delicacy and often backfires fatally. You learn about the role of wealthy patrons who sometimes develop interests in specific prisoners. A rich matron might become fascinated with a particular gladiator or exotic prisoner, using her influence to ensure his survival. These relationships, often based on sexual attraction or simple whim, can dramatically improve a prisoner's prospects, but they also make him vulnerable to the patron's changing moods or political fortunes. The economics of the games create their own political pressures. Expensive prisoners, those who required significant military campaigns to capture, who possess valuable skills, or who represent major political statements, are more likely to be preserved for multiple appearances. Cheap prisoners, common criminals, slaves, or captives from minor conflicts face higher mortality rates because their deaths carry fewer economic and political costs. Imperial succession politics cast shadows over every arena decision. During periods of uncertainty about imperial succession, officials become more conservative in their treatment of prisoners, avoiding decisions that might be interpreted unfavorably by future rulers. Conversely, during periods of secure imperial power, officials might take more risks with spectacular deaths or surprising mercies that demonstrate their confidence in current policies. The day of reckoning. You wake before dawn on the day you're scheduled to fight, and immediately notice the different quality of sound filtering down from the arena above. Instead of the usual maintenance noises and guard conversations, You hear the rumble of arriving crowds, the shouts of vendors, and the complex orchestration of a major spectacle being prepared. Today, the machinery of death is operating at full capacity, and you're about to become part of the show. The morning routine changes dramatically on fight days. Guards arrive earlier and more numerous, carrying updated lists and speaking in urgent, clipped tones. The breakfast, such as it is, arrives with unusual additions: a piece of actual meat, some wine mixed with the water, even small portions of honey cake. These improvements aren't kindness. They're practical necessities. Prisoners need enough energy to provide entertaining fights, and Romans have learned that starving fighters die too quickly to satisfy crowd expectations. Your name appears on the morning list, written in Latin characters on a wax tablet that a guard reads with practiced indifference. Prisoner 847. Germanic origin, beast combat, second hour. The clinical language reduces your entire existence to administrative details, but it also provides crucial information. Second hour means you'll fight after the crowd has warmed up, but before they become restless. Beast combat against a single animal rather than multiple creatures or human opponents. These details help you mentally prepare for what's coming. The preparation ritual begins with a visit from a prison barber, a slave, who shaves condemned prisoners and cuts their hair to make them look more presentable for the crowd. This isn't vanity. It's theater. Romans expect their entertainment to have certain visual standards, and unkempt prisoners don't photograph well in the collective memory of 50,000 spectators. The barber works quickly and without conversation, but his presence signals that your death is considered worth investing minor resources to enhance. Weapons are distributed with elaborate ceremony designed to emphasize the hopelessness of your situation. You're given a spear with a bronze point, a small leather shield, and a short knife that's been deliberately dulled. The weapons are functional enough to provide a credible fight, but poor enough to ensure that extraordinary skill would be required to actually win. A guard explains the rules. Kill the beast, and you live to fight another day. Die well, and your body will be removed with honor. Die poorly, and you'll be dragged out with the sand. The psychological pressure intensifies as you're moved to a holding area closer to the arena lifts. Here, you can hear individual crowd voices, smell the food being sold in the stands, and feel the vibration of thousands of feet stamping in anticipation. Other prisoners scheduled for the same time period gather in this space, some praying, some exercising, some sitting in silent contemplation of their approaching deaths. A brief medical examination follows, conducted by a prison physician who checks for obvious diseases or injuries that might interfere with your performance. This isn't healthcare. It's quality control. Sick prisoners provide poor entertainment and might spread illness to valuable gladiators or animals. The physician also applies basic first aid to existing wounds, ensuring you'll be able to fight effectively rather than collapsing from previous injuries. Religious observances are permitted for prisoners who request them, though time constraints limit these ceremonies severely. A Christian prisoner might receive a brief blessing from a fellow believer. Pagan prisoners could make small offerings to their gods using scraps of food or torn cloth. These moments of spiritual preparation serve practical psychological purposes, helping prisoners achieve the mental states necessary for facing death with some degree of dignity. The weapons check is repeated multiple times by different officials, ensuring that no prisoner has somehow acquired superior equipment or hidden additional weapons. Your spear point is measured against a standard template. Your shield is examined for hidden metal reinforcements, and your knife is tested against a piece of leather to confirm its dullness. These precautions reflect lessons learned from previous prisoners who managed to defeat their assigned opponents through superior equipment acquired through bribery or smuggling. The final moments before ascending to the arena are marked by a peculiar mixture of bureaucratic efficiency and human drama. Guards check their lists repeatedly, ensuring that the right prisoners are assigned to the right contests. Fellow prisoners offer final words of advice, encouragement, or simply farewell. Some manage brief embraces or handshakes. Human contact that becomes infinitely precious when death is measured in minutes rather than years. The elevator mechanism that will lift you into the arena undergoes final testing. You hear the grinding of gears, the creaking of ropes, and the thump of the platform reaching arena level. These sounds, which you've heard countless times during your imprisonment, now carry immediate personal significance. In moments, you'll ascend from the underground world of the condemned into the blazing sunlight of the Roman Colosseum, where 50,000 people are waiting to watch you die. Your last view of the hypogeum includes the faces of prisoners who aren't fighting today, some envious of your chance to die with weapons in hand, others grateful for another day of life, all of them understanding that they're witnessing a moment they'll likely experience themselves soon. The solidarity among the condemned creates brief moments of genuine, human connection in an environment designed to strip away humanity and reduce people to mere entertainment. The arena floor, the elevator lurches upward, and suddenly you're standing on the arena floor of the Roman Colosseum, experiencing one of the most disorienting transitions imaginable. After weeks or months in the dim, cramped underground world, the vastness of the arena strikes you like a physical blow. The oval sand floor stretches 287 feet long and 180 feet wide, larger than most Roman towns you've known. Above you rises the most complex architectural structure in the world. 4 stories of marble and stone, filled with 50,000 human beings, who have gathered specifically to watch you die. The roar of the crowd hits you before your eyes adjust to the blazing sunlight. It's not just sound, it's a physical force that seems to vibrate through your bones. Individual voices disappear into a collective noise that alternates between anticipatory murmur and thunderous approval. You realize this crowd represents more people than most prisoners have seen in their entire lives, all focused on your next few minutes of existence. The sand beneath your feet tells stories of previous deaths. Despite being raked and cleaned between events, dark stains persist in certain areas where blood has soaked too deeply to remove completely. The sand itself is deliberately chosen for its absorbent qualities. It needs to soak up blood quickly, so that fights can continue without combatants slipping on gore from previous contests. You notice that the sand near the arena walls is slightly darker, marking the spots where wounded fighters typically retreat in their final moments. Your opponent waits at the far end of the arena, a North African lion that's been starved for 2 days to ensure aggressive behavior. The beast paces in a small cage that will be opened when officials signal the start of combat. Even from a distance, you can see the lion's ribs showing through its coat, evidence of the deliberate starvation that's supposed to guarantee it will attack immediately. But you've learned enough about animal behavior to notice that this particular lion seems lethargic rather than aggressive, possibly sick, or drugged, or simply too weak from hunger to fight effectively. The arena walls rise 15 feet above the sand, topped with metal spikes and nets designed to prevent any escape attempt. But you notice irregularities in the wall construction, small alcoves where maintenance equipment is stored, slight overhangs that might provide momentary shelter, and drainage channels that could theoretically offer hiding places if you could reach them. These details might prove crucial if your fight extends longer than expected. The Emperor's Box dominates the northern side of the arena, recognizable by its purple hangings and the elaborate awning that shades the Imperial Party. Today's games are being presided over by a local magistrate rather than Caesar himself, which might be good or bad news depending on his mood and political ambitions. You can see him clearly, a middle-aged man in a toga with purple stripes, surrounded by advisors and friends who will influence his decisions about life and death for you and your fellow prisoners. The crowd's composition becomes more visible as your eyes adjust to the lighting. The upper tiers house the plebs, common citizens, freed slaves, and women, who receive free admission thanks to imperial largesse. These spectators tend to be the most bloodthirsty, demanding spectacular deaths to justify their day of entertainment. The middle sections contain the equestrian class, merchants, minor officials, and successful artisans who have purchased better seats and expect more sophisticated entertainment. The lowest tier houses senators and wealthy patricians who prefer skillful combat to simple butchery. Officials in white togas move around the arena perimeter, supervising the games and ready to intervene if anything goes wrong. They carry rods of office and wear distinctive red shoes that mark their authority. These men will make the final decisions about your fate if you somehow survive your assigned opponent. You notice them consulting written schedules and speaking with trainers, treating your potential death as a business transaction that needs to be managed efficiently. The weapons check is repeated one final time on the arena floor, but now it becomes part of the show. Officials dramatically inspect your spear, test your shield, and display your knife to the crowd, emphasizing how poorly equipped you are for the coming battle. This ritual serves multiple purposes. It ensures you haven't somehow acquired better weapons. It demonstrates Roman fairness in providing some equipment, and it builds crowd anticipation by highlighting your disadvantages. The opening ceremony begins with a trumpet blast that echoes off the arena walls and silences crowd conversation. A herald reads your crimes and sentence in Latin, his voice carrying clearly through the Colosseum's acoustically perfect design. Let the prisoner from Germania face the beast of Africa, and let Roman justice be satisfied by combat. The formal language transforms your approaching death into a legal proceeding, making the crowd complicit in official punishment rather than mere entertainment. The referee, a former gladiator who survived long enough to earn retirement, approaches with final instructions, delivered in a mixture of Latin and gestures that transcend language barriers. Stay away from the walls. Keep moving. Give them a show. Die like a warrior, and you'll be remembered. His advice is practical and compassionate within the constraints of your situation. He's trying to help you die well since dying seems inevitable. The moment arrives. The lion's cage opens with a grinding of metal mechanisms, and the beast emerges into the arena sunlight. But instead of charging immediately toward you, it stops and looks around, clearly confused by the noise, light, and unfamiliar environment. This hesitation gives you precious seconds to observe its condition and plan your approach. The lion is indeed weakened by hunger, but it's also made unpredictable by stress and disorientation. Your training kicks in as you realize this fight might be winnable if you can exploit the animal's confusion while avoiding its still formidable natural weapons. The crowd's roar intensifies as they realize the combat is about to begin. 50,000 voices blend into a sound like thunder or ocean waves, creating an acoustic environment unlike anything in the natural world. This is the moment you've been preparing for, not just the fight itself, but the performance of your own potential death in front of the largest audience most humans ever face. Everything you've learned about survival, politics, psychology, and combat will be tested in the next few minutes. The sand beneath your feet, soaked with the blood of countless predecessors, now awaits your contribution to the brutal spectacle that defines Roman entertainment at its most elemental level. The dance of death. The lion takes its first tentative steps onto the arena sand, and you immediately recognize the signs you've been trained to watch for. Its ears are slightly back, not the full aggression posture, but cautious alertness. The beast's tail twitches irregularly, another indication of confusion rather than focused hunting instinct. Most importantly, it keeps glancing back toward its cage, suggesting it wants to retreat rather than attack. This gives you your first tactical advantage. The animal is more afraid than hungry. You begin moving laterally along the arena wall, keeping your spear pointed toward the lion while maintaining maximum distance. The crowd's noise seems to press against your skull, but you force yourself to filter out the sound and focus on the immediate threat. The lion's head follows your movement, but it doesn't advance. Instead, it sits down heavily, panting in the afternoon heat. You realize this animal might be sick rather than simply starved. Its coat looks dull, and its breathing seems labored. The referee gestures impatiently, clearly wanting more action for the crowd's entertainment. Some spectators begin booing, disappointed by the lack of immediate violence. You understand the implicit message. If neither you nor the lion provide spectacle, additional animals might be released, or the officials might intervene in ways that eliminate your chances of survival entirely. You make a calculated decision to provoke the lion into action on your terms. Rather than waiting for the situation to deteriorate further, you advance toward the beast, not directly, but at an angle that forces it to turn and expose its flanks. The lion responds by standing and facing you squarely, but still doesn't charge. Instead, it opens its mouth in what might be a roar, but comes out as more of a hoarse cough. Definitely sick, you realize, which makes it both less dangerous and more unpredictable. The crowd's mood shifts as they begin to understand that this won't be a typical quick execution. Spectators in the upper tiers start calling out advice and encouragement, treating your survival efforts as entertainment rather than desperation. Some are actually cheering for you rather than the lion, perhaps recognizing the skill required to handle a dangerous animal with such poor weapons. You feint toward the lion's left side, then quickly reverse direction when it turns to follow your movement. The beast's reflexes are slower than they should be, confirming your assessment of its condition. But even a sick lion possesses claws and teeth that can kill you instantly if you make a mistake. You probe its defenses with short spear thrusts, staying well out of range but testing its reaction time and mobility. The lion finally decides to attack, but its charge lacks the explosive power you've been trained to expect. Instead of a bounding leap, it advances in a heavy loping run that gives you time to sidestep and position yourself for a counterattack. Your spear point finds the animal's shoulder, penetrating deep enough to draw blood, but not hitting any vital organs. The lion spins toward you with surprising speed, and you barely avoid its claws by throwing yourself backward onto the sand. Rolling to your feet, you assess the new situation. The lion is wounded but not disabled, and now it's genuinely angry rather than just confused. Blood flows from the spear wound, making the sand slippery beneath its feet. The crowd roars approval at the first blood, but you know this is when the real danger begins. Wounded animals often become more aggressive, and even a sick lion can kill you if cornered or desperate. You circle carefully, keeping your shield up and your spear ready for thrust or parry. The lion favors its wounded side slightly, giving you information about its reduced mobility. But it's also learning from your previous attack, keeping its head lower and watching your feet as much as your weapon. Intelligence, even animal intelligence, makes any opponent more dangerous. The breakthrough comes when the lion attempts another charge, this time from a different angle. You've been watching for the telltale signs, the slight crouch, the focused stare, the tension in its hindquarters before the leap. When it comes, you're ready. Instead of retreating or sidestepping, you advance at an angle, meeting its charge with your spear point extended. The physics work in your favor. The lion's own momentum drives the bronze point deep into its chest cavity. The impact knocks you backward, but your spear remains embedded in the beast's body. The lion staggers, tries to roar, and instead coughs up blood that spatters across the arena sand. It attempts to advance toward you, but its legs won't support its weight properly. You draw your knife, dull as it is, and approach carefully. The lion's eyes are glazing, but dying animals can still be dangerous. The kill stroke comes when you're close enough to smell the animal's blood and feel its labored breathing. You drive the knife into the base of its skull, severing the spinal cord. The lion shudders once and goes still. The crowd erupts in cheers, but you remain focused on the immediate situation. Dead animals have sometimes been known to twitch or convulse, and a reflexive claw swipe could still injure you. Standing over your kill, covered in sand and blood, you look up at the crowd for the first time since the fight began. Thousands of faces stare back at you, many showing genuine appreciation for your performance. The magistrate in his box is consulting with his advisors, clearly making a decision about your fate. This is the moment when political calculations matter more than combat skill. Your survival depends on whether he decides. Your performance was entertaining enough to warrant continued life. The thumbs begin appearing throughout the crowd, some pointed up, some down, creating a visual democracy of death. But the final decision rests with the magistrate, who studies you for what feels like hours, but is probably only seconds. Finally, his thumb appears, not pointing up or down, but pressed against his chest. Mercy. You've earned the right to live another day, to face another opponent, to continue the desperate dance between life and death that defines existence in the Roman arena. Beyond the arena, you're escorted back to the Hypogeum with an entirely different status than when you left. Guards who previously treated you as disposable cargo now show a grudging respect. You've proven yourself capable of providing entertainment, which makes you valuable rather than merely condemned. The other prisoners who witnessed your return understand immediately that something fundamental has changed. You're no longer just another man waiting to die. You're a survivor, and that changes everything about your place in the underground hierarchy. The prison physician examines your wounds with genuine care rather than perfunctory inspection. Your lion opponent managed to inflict several deep scratches across your ribs, and sand has worked its way into the cuts, creating infection risks that could kill you as surely as any animal. But now your health matters to the Roman administration. Dead heroes provide no future entertainment value. You receive clean bandages, actual antiseptic salve made from wine and herbs, and instructions for wound care that acknowledge you might live long enough for healing to matter. News of your victory spreads through the prison network faster than official reports reach administrative offices. Prisoners who previously ignored you now seek conversation, hoping to learn techniques or insights that might improve their own survival chances. Those scheduled for upcoming beast combats beg for specific advice about reading animal behavior, timing attacks, and managing fear under pressure. You find yourself becoming an unofficial instructor, sharing hard-won knowledge that might keep other desperate souls alive a few days longer. The food situation improves dramatically. Instead of the standard watery gruel, you receive portions that include actual meat, vegetables, and even small amounts of garum, the fermented fish sauce that Romans consider essential for proper nutrition. These dietary improvements serve practical purposes beyond reward. The Romans have invested resources in keeping you alive and want to ensure you remain physically capable of future performances. Better food means better stamina, which translates to more entertaining fights and higher crowd satisfaction. Your sleeping arrangements change from the communal cells to a small private space that, while still underground and locked, offers luxuries unimaginable just days earlier. A real mattress stuffed with straw, a wool blanket, even a small oil lamp that provides personal light during the long underground nights. These amenities aren't kindness. They're business investments designed to maintain a valuable asset in optimal condition. The psychological impact of survival proves as significant as the physical changes. For months, you've lived with the certainty of approaching death, making every decision based on the assumption that tomorrow might